Welcome to the At Leisure Podcast. This is a show about sports, video games, movies, and just basically the things we do with our leisure time. My name is Bret, and I'm here with my good friend and returning guest, Spencer. And today we're talking about a show that had a huge impact on us, and that is The Chosen. So what's up, man? Are you ready to finally talk about the show?
I am. Been waiting a while.
We teased it a little bit in Andor because you asked me, like, what are my favorite TV shows? And I told you The Chosen, Avatar, and then Andor in that order.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh. So we'll have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And now we are. But for those who don't already know, this is a show depicting the life of Jesus and his followers. So let's just dive into it. What were your general impressions? Why did you give the show a shot?
I honestly do not remember what caused me to watch it. I don't remember who told me about it or where I saw it. I don't remember anything at all.
Yeah.
But after the first episode, I was like, oh, this is different than literally anything I've ever seen depicting anything in the Bible. So instantly after the first episode, I was like, I gotta watch this whole show. So
the production value jumps off the screen right away. Like most Christian shows, you're like, oh, dude, this is mega cheesy. You have to look through past that to try to get something out of it. But this show, dude, they got real sets going on. They've got special effects that are believable when they needed to be believable.
Mm-hmm.
The dialogue was really well done for the most part. There's only a few times where I'm like, ooh, that's a little. But I mean, even then, it's that's in every show, and it just feels like a real TV show, real drama. And I've just been wanting that for so long about the Bible, and it's so cool that we've got that. I think the extra biblical context that it adds is not detrimental. It adds to the themes of the stories for the most part, and
Mm-hmm.
most of the time it seems plausible even. We'll dive into that later in the show, but
okay, yeah, looks like I have a few thoughts on that, but we can wait till the end for sure.
And then I also think, man, the Jewish context in this is just incredibly done. It shows respect to the Jewish people, and then also just shows you this is where, Jesus was. These are the people he was around. This is the people of God.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. I think they do a really good job of showing the context.
Yeah, and they make a good job of people seeming real. Because
yes,
older, cheesier ones that seem like they're filmed in someone's backyard on a $10 budget were they're not real. They're not relatable in any sense at all. And when you first watch, I guess in the first episode, when you meet Mary and Jesus and a couple other disciples, you're like, oh, these dudes have personalities. What is this? They're not floating saints or no emotion. They have emotions. They have flaws. So
they let them speak outside of the Bible. And I appreciate a lot of Bible shows that they're we don't want to deviate from what we have. But the thing is these stories, they're not the only things that were ever said ever, So it's you got to let these characters who were real people, sound and feel like real people. Otherwise, you only have Jesus talking in parables, and that's it. I mean, that's all we've got because that's what they wrote down because that was what was important. But obviously, there's so many other things that were said and done, and I think it's just cool that they've used their imagination and made things seem real, and it feel like you can tell that's so different than most Bible stories, most Bible, I guess.
And you can tell there's
media.
There's not an agenda with that they're pushing. It's just
100%.
we're do what we can to be faithful to what Scripture tells us, and we're just trying to elaborate that in a more relatable way. Through those, like you're saying, connecting scenes or different parts of Scripture in a reasonable, and probably real way that it very could have happened or close to it.
Let's just dive into some of the characters. You already mentioned Mary. I thought it was a great choice starting with her. Because that's not where the gospel starts, but that's where they chose to start this story, and I think that was a great idea.
Yeah. She it was the beginning's dark.
So dark, dude. I was like the depiction of demon possession that they did is so heartbreaking. It's so I don't think about it enough, I don't think. And that's what this show does great is it makes you think about the Bible more than just reading a sentence of she was demon possessed,
Yeah, and it shows there's a lot of caricatures, that people believe about things in the Bible, and this show I feel challenges a lot of those things in a healthy way. In my mind, demon possessed people looked or acted a certain way, but you don't I shouldn't say I didn't think it enough through in a way that I feel genuinely bad for her when she's going through those things, and
right.
It's I don't know, it just makes I don't know. It's I
it's
literally don't know how to
hard.
describe it.
I was gonna say it's hard though because we have to elaborate so much on one sentence, of
Yeah,
like she was demon possessed, or this show gets to breathe with these people who are. It's a constant theme in the story of like these people you get to see into their lives before Jesus heals them, so they're not just like in the Bible. Like if you read it right, it shouldn't be this way, but too often it's just easy to blow through it, and it's like you read it and it's almost a means to an end of like this person's here to show Jesus doing a miracle,
yeah,
but to Jesus' eyes, like this person has this whole life, and Jesus is stepping into that, and it's just really cool to
yeah,
like think about that more because this show dwells on Mary and like this heartbreaking situation she's in, and scary even.
yeah. No, it it's funny too when I recommend it to like people if they have like little kids. It's like I'm like maybe some of the little kids shouldn't watch the first episode because
Yeah,
that seems kind of scary. But
yeah,
I
literal.
respect their I guess not leap of faith, but like their willingness to like put that as their
Go
first
for it.
episode
Yeah.
because Mary. It's not the disciple. It's not Jesus. It's mostly about Mary and
Hmm.
have the heaviness of demon possession. So
Yes. Yep. And I love how it brings in Nicodemus. Nicodemus is
my
probably
man.
my favorite she's season one character. Like we keep saying character because it's
Yeah,
like these are real people,
yeah,
but character is what you got to say because it's a dramatized story of the Bible. So
yeah,
when we say character, obviously we know these are real people, but the way that they were portrayed are
yeah,
probably it's you take some creative liberties, but
yeah.
they do a good job of just staying to the Bible, but at the same time elaborating, like we've said. But man, Nicodemus coming in, I think it's a great idea too to show him as a Pharisee because it would be so easy to just make this show and make all the Pharisees bad guys. And
Hmm.
Nicodemus isn't a huge part of the Gospels, but they
No,
said, hey, we need to show like a good Pharisee so that when you see the bad Pharisees, you're not just thinking, oh wow, these guys were just straight evil to the core. And I think that was smart. That was such a good idea.
and this is the creative liberty part that I admire because, like you're saying, he's not mentioned very much. I think he's only mentioned in three passages, and they're not long at all. Like it's John 3:16 around then, right? With Jesus when he's
Mm-hmm.
talking to Jesus,
Yeah.
and then there's like two small references later in the Bible, but it never talks about him again, really. And so, like them being able to weave him into this story, this biblical narrative, the whole first season, it makes me trust them to for the later seasons that they're like
Mm-hmm.
doing a good job. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And to have him try to cast out the demons from Mary and not be successful, it like opens the doorway to like Nicodemus this whole time starting to reflect on his life and his situation. The show does a good job of like framing him to where you can tell like, oh, he's starting to like question their ways and their motives in a way that he hadn't before. And then that shows like how a Pharisee could open his heart up to Jesus.
Yeah,
And
there's several scenes where it's like because he's like pretty high up on the ladder. Whenever the other guys below him, they treat him like he's God, and his wife
mm-hmm,
keeps telling him, "You're basically second to God." And
mm-hmm,
he gets like you can see him getting annoyed with that, like I
yeah,
am not worthy of even being close to God. And you can see it's like his heart changing, and then he sees Mary and he's like really his eyes are really opened and he's willing to like I guess seek look for what's happening. And you see him like struggling with that through the whole season of him trying to figure out what's going on. And the couple like different things seem to add up, but it means that there's it's the opposite of what he's been growing up in and like what he's taught himself. So that conflict is awesome. It's really cool to see him.
and the dialogue for him is so good. Like he has so many lines that are just like, oh man, that's so
Yeah.
true. That's so
100%.
true. And I just love his conversations with like all his relationships are so like he's always talking like it's smart dialogue between him and these relationships that shows like where he is in situationally, like with his wife, like you were talking about, where she's constantly just telling him like how good he is and like, hey, you can't show weakness and you are not allowed to question things. And
Hmm.
he's like, well, if I can't question, like who am I? I haven't learned everything to know about God that there is. His relationship with Shmuel and Yusuf, I think, are the
Yeah.
two that are like his understudies, and
Hmm.
just to see the back and forth with them too is just really
Yeah.
it's really good dialogue.
Yeah, they give you this like the stereotypical bad guy in Shmuel, just being like real hard and
Uh-huh.
rigid and just like
Yep.
doesn't care. Like he like wants the
It would
law.
have been
That's all he cares about,
yeah.
which is like not very much depth, right? but then you see him like his opposite in Nicodemus, and a little bit, like just a little bit in Yusuf. Like he's a little different. He's like a middle
Uh-huh.
guy, but for the most part, he kind of keeps. He's like third man on the pole, so he
In
kind of
this
he's
in this
quiet.
first season, he's hard nosed too, like
Yeah,
Shmuel for the most part.
yeah.
But spoiler alert, he has character arc through the next few seasons too. Oh, what else about Nicodemus?
I mean, we could
Um,
go the whole season through him because he's my favorite character too. There is literally like I refused to write so many quotes because there'd be so many of quotes when I was like
dude, give
taking
me some
notes.
quotes. Give me some
Oh,
quotes. Do you have
I
some?
don't have any. Like I literally don't.
I
Know
know. I
what,
started writing them and then I stopped writing them because I was just writing everything that he said.
yeah, I have a lot of notes like on as he's struggling to deal with like what's going on in his heart. Like he tries to fake it, tries to fake what he used to believe to like maybe it's just like a phase or something like that, and like it stirs him up even more. I think it's in episode 2 when they're at the Shabbat scene, and they're
Mhm.
like again they're all just you're so great,
Uh-huh.
you're basically God on earth kind of a thing, and he whenever his wife tries to convince him, he tries to like accept her words as wisdom, and it just never works out. It always backfires.
I love how it also opens the door too because he says, like, she's telling him like only God could have cast out those demons, and he's like, yeah, you're right. Actually, I could have done it, but I'm not God, so
Yeah,
she was beyond help. And then then obviously that opens up the door for when he does see her to be like, that was God.
yeah,
Like, who healed you? That must have
yeah.
been God. And it's really good writing. I think that's really cool.
Okay, so I
And
think I have one quote from Nicodemus. Actually,
okay.
it's John the Baptist, but he's talking to Nicodemus, and he was basically saying like he said, "You've been asleep, and now you've awoken, and some will not awaken because they love the darkness." And that's like literally what he was fighting, and like you can see that literally in Yusuf and Shmuel, like they like the darkness, and then he's the one that sees he once he's awake, he can't go back to sleep, and it's
Hmm.
destroying him inside in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. The scene where Nicodemus visits John the Baptist in prison is
Yeah,
so good.
that's what it's from.
It's very extra biblical, but it's so good,
Yeah.
man. It's like the idea of John talking to a Pharisee and like they're back and forth how they just don't like each other at all. And then John coming to the realization of like, oh, you know Jesus, like you've seen him, you know what this is
Yeah.
now.
And
And
John hasn't yet.
John has it, yeah.
Yeah,
And
like he's a
he's
little jealous. You can kind of
yeah.
see he's a little jealous, but he's like
uh,
hyped for it.
yes. And it's so good because they do a good job of depicting John too, of being like this crazy looking dude who's like what eating locusts and got
Yeah.
barely any clothes on, and he's just like scraggly beard. And
Yeah.
man, it's so good. That is probably one of my favorite scenes. And like Nicodemus is trying to figure out if John the Baptist is Jesus himself. He's like, "Are you Jesus?"
Yeah. Yeah, he asked
And
him that.
and eventually he realized, "Oh no, it's not him." And John the Baptist the whole time is like trying to figure out like what is Nicodemus' angle? Why are you here?
Yeah.
And it's really cool back and forth
Yeah,
between
let's get
those
back
two.
because they are like they're enemies. Like they hate each other essentially. And then
Hmm.
they both mutually like
Realize like, oh,
understand, yeah, that they both
uh,
kind of are hearing and believing the same thing. So I guess we can move on to someone else because I don't want to say that my favorite part because that has to do with Nicodemus at the end.
okay, yeah,
That's
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
with Jesus, but
Uh,
we'll say that to the end, I guess.
okay,
Um,
that sounds good. You want to move to
that's yeah,
Simon Andrew?
yeah. I like them both. So,
Yeah, yeah,
do you like Simon or Andrew more?
bro. I think I like Andrew more.
I do too. Same. Yes.
I think that's on purpose though. They make it like Andrew's portrayed so earnest and compared to Simon who's like jaded, and I love
Yeah.
that contrast of those two brothers.
Yeah. I literally wrote that in my notes. It's like when you first meet them, like I don't know, their dynamic is really funny. But Andrew
Uh-huh.
is like a good. He's like a teacher's pet, I guess, kind of like a yes man, kind of like do what's right, no ask questions. And then Simon's the total opposite and just does everything his way and tries to force the issue. Okay, is the scene where Jesus goes up to the boat, and
Uh-huh.
and Andrew had already been talking to Simon about this Jesus character and like John the Baptist, and Simon like blows him off and he's like, yeah, okay, that crazy preacher guy in the wild. And then when they meet Jesus, they both kind of like have this like weird like sense that Jesus, that Jesus has. And as soon as
Uh-huh.
Jesus says to do something, Andrew, without hesitation, never meeting the guy, just
Yeah,
instantly does it.
just does
He's
it.
like
Yeah.
excited,
Yeah.
and Simon's kind of like, no, not no,
he
kind of,
he's the more honestly he's the more reasonable approach of like
yeah,
if this guy just asks you to do something you're like, "Oh, I got some problems
yeah. Who are
going
you?
on there."
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, that
Yeah.
was like the best depiction in my like from them all through the season one. That's the best depiction of their personalities.
Yeah, and I just love how too they started them off as desperate fishermen to just show the difference of their life before and after Jesus,
Hmm.
you know, of like the idea of like how desperate they might not even be good fishermen, you know. Jesus called these guys who might not even be good fishermen. And I also love how they are at odds with Matthew too. I think that's really smart to show like that way you're personally invested in why Matthew is such a bad like the idea of Matthew joining the 12 apostles would be so like foreign to them.
Hmm.
You know, I think that's a good idea. Like you said, their brother relationship is really well. I tell you what, Simon's relationship with Eden, his wife, is more of a focus than I was expecting, and it is really powerful stuff.
Yeah,
Like they do a really good job of portraying like
an
a
actual
real
relationship,
marriage.
like a real
Yes.
marriage.
Uh-huh. And like the moment when Simon does, he like comes to her and he's like afraid to tell her that he's joining Jesus, and she's just like so happy for him. Like she's like, this is what I've prayed for, and like finally Jesus sees in you what I've always seen in you. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, that's so good. That's
Yeah,
like that is that is essentially what marriage should be, is like you see your partner as like the best of them, you know? And it's
yeah,
like this is how I want other people to see you, and this is how I know God sees you. And I think that's just really cool.
yeah. And
Really well
they
done.
don't shy away from the negatives, like the struggles
Like
that they go through in
like
their marriage.
uh-huh.
So they show both the good and the bad.
Mhm.
Um, and they show like, I don't know why, it may have just been me, but like it was weird in a good way. I was kind of shocked. They would like show them kissing or
Yeah.
something like that. I was like,
Again, that's
that's
not
not what I
that's not a
expected.
Bible
Yeah,
story kind of thing. Like they shy away from anything like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Like they don't care about pushing boundaries. And they've said that in like their like
They even imply that they had sex. And I was like,
yes,
"Whoa.
yeah,
Okay." I mean, they are married. That's fine, but
yeah. They
it's
make
like
jokes about it.
yeah, but it's like that's real, you know? Like that's real life.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was surprising to me too. And I was like, "Why am I surprised by this?"
I know. What was your initial reaction when you saw Mary meet Jesus? Were you kind of were you
I
shocked?
I was I was like, I okay. I liked it for the most part.
Hmm.
I thought the music choice was weird,
Yep. Okay.
and I was having a hard time getting into it because of that. And also like he starts off and he touches her hand right when they're at the bar, and I was like, golly, giving me weird vibes. And then at the end, it was good payoff. But at first, I'm like, oh, are they about to not portray Jesus? They're going to do so good, and then Jesus is going to be the struggle.
Yeah.
But no, they nail him. Like they do such a good job. The actor is really good, and like it's so weird too because like watching this show, I'm like, okay, I'm invested in this show, but I'm going to try my best to not make these actors the faces that I show for the apostles in my like when I'm reading. Like I don't want to confuse the two. And
Yeah.
for some reason, man, like I am struggling with Jesus. Like this
Oh yeah.
actor to me, like now when I picture Jesus, it's like this actor, and I'm like, ah, I gotta.
Yeah. I mean,
I
it's
don't know
better
why
than
that.
what most people think of, at least in the U.S., which is like a white guy.
Yeah,
At
I
least he
guess that's true.
looks somewhat
Yeah.
like the Middle Eastern Jesus that he
Hmm.
was, which I think is cool that they did hire like predominantly Middle Eastern people. I think Matthew, like the actor who plays Matthew, is actually Indian, I think, but most of them are either like Middle Eastern descent,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah,
really cool.
the people that it would have
Yes,
been.
like the real
Yeah.
people. Yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah, no. When I kind of get sucked into movies and TV shows a lot, so I didn't even
Yeah.
notice the music. Honestly, like when it zoomed in like on Jesus and her, I was just locked in. I don't know,
Good.
dude. That
That's what they were going for.
yeah, I mean it works on me. Like I'm not a very that stuff happens easily to me. So
Yeah.
every time Jesus does something, like I am locked in and feeling every moment, which is really cool. It's exciting. That's why I like
Uh,
watching it too. But oh yeah, I was not expecting Jesus to show up there, and I don't know. There's the way that every single person when they interact with Jesus interacts the same way. I don't know if you've noticed that. But like, there's always a sense of unworthiness. At the same time, there's always this sense of like peace. at the same time, and then there's like all these emotions that they go through, and every single person that interacts with them, at least the first time, sometimes multiple times. I feel like that's how you would talk to, like, that's how it would happen.
Mm,
Like with the
yeah.
when Jesus heals the leper,
Hmm.
and then when basically anytime Jesus does a miracle, I'll just do say that.
Yeah, you're diving right into Jesus. I was going to go to Matthew next, but we'll just talk about
Oh,
Jesus here.
we can go Matthew.
No, let's talk about Jesus. Always, let's talk about
I
Jesus.
forget Jesus.
You put that on a podcast,
Yeah,
bro. You said that out loud.
just clip it out.
But they do such a good job of, like I said, the intro to me was when he said Mary, when he said her name, I was like, okay, that gave me chills. But
Yeah,
it was really good, and I love how he's not like he's not saying a bunch of platitudes. He's got humor. He
yeah, it's funny too.
yeah, he's
Like, it's actually
relatable,
funny.
and like he's I like how he seems more like I don't know if disappointed is the word. He's like harder on Nicodemus than the others. Like when he talks to Nicodemus, he's like I expect more from you. You are a
Hmm.
leader of these people. And so like you can tell like with everyone else he's super patient, but with Nicodemus he was less so because he's just he's obviously frustrated with the Jewish leadership. So I think that was cool how gentle he is with everybody except for maybe Nicodemus. I also love how in there's a weird episode 3, where I say it's weird. It's just out of nowhere because we're in the thick of this story, and then we cut to Jesus, and I think Jesus being tempted in the desert right before it goes into the theme song, which the theme song I warmed up to at first. I was like, nah, but now I'm like, oh yeah, give me the theme song. I
Yeah,
love it. But like the scene before the theme song, I think it's him being tempted in the desert. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. It's before the weird episode, like at the very beginning. It is.
Yeah, it's like zooming in on his face, and he's in the wilderness, and he's like talking to God, and he seems distressed. And I was just like, oh, I think this is like the start of his ministry, right? He's getting tempted
Yeah,
in the desert, and then he's living alone as a hermit out there in the wild.
yeah,
And then like a kid, like they shift the focus to a little girl, and she like stumbles upon his camp, and then Jesus befriends her and her friends, and then like this whole episode is just him hanging out with these children, and it cracks me
I'm
up too
trying.
because they put him to work.
Yeah,
He puts them to work.
yeah. I
He's like,
don't.
well, you can hang out with me, but you gotta do some carpentry with me.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Some people like that episode, but yeah, to me, I was kind of like, after watching it once, I typically will skip it.
Hmm.
But I get what they were doing, and it just didn't land with me. I guess not
I
that it's
think
bad.
I was going to say, I think I liked it. I kind of wish they'd have thrown. I understand they're trying to keep it to where you're like thinking about this happening while all these other things are happening to the disciples before Jesus reaches them.
Hmm.
But like, I think it's cool because it's kind of showing him like he's prepping to teach, but he's teaching these children who are easier students. You know, so like they ask good questions, but Jesus knows he's about to teach people who don't ask the right questions. He's teaching these kids who are like willing to change their thought process, and he knows I'm about to teach people not willing to change their thought process. And I think it's just a reflection of like Jesus saying like you have to have a mentality of a child because these kids, they're understanding, and I've not even started my ministry,
Yeah,
like I'm teaching them and they are understanding more than others.
yeah, and
I think
they're willing to listen.
exactly, and I think it shows a heart that Jesus has for children, where that was not common in the time. It also kind of shows that he's a carpenter, just knocking that box.
Yeah, check.
Showing him human too, like showing him eat, showing him like washing his feet, sleeping, all those things that like a human does that you just don't always picture Jesus doing.
Hmm.
And I think it's cool to think about these children, if something like this did happen, to like grow up and realize like, oh my gosh, that guy was Jesus.
Yeah.
Like we just
What
hung
did I
out with
find?
Jesus for a month.
Yeah, what am I doing?
So it's kind of cool. Like these children might have been like his first disciples in this scenario that they created. And I think it's just kind of, I think that's what they were getting at. And I think they nail it for the most part.
Yeah,
It's just an odd spot in the show
yeah,
to put it.
I agree with everything you said. It was just kind of I feel like I didn't just need a whole episode, but I guess the
Yeah,
episode was shorter than the other ones too.
it
It was
was
pretty
shorter.
short. So
It was like 25 minutes compared
yeah,
to the others that are like 45
Yeah,
plus.
because the show's so good, I'll give that episode a pass. But
A pass. That's
yeah,
funny. But I think too that is hardcore, like talking about Jesus. Like that whole scene kind of sets up his character.
hmm
Character. Again, it feels weird to say that. Anything else about him, his portrayal in the show?
I mean, he's my favorite. He's my second favorite character this season.
Yeah,
That sounds
Jesus.
sacrilegious a little bit,
Yeah,
but
it's hilarious.
uh, the
They
character.
do. I think they also do a good job too, because it would be easy to focus the whole show on Jesus, but they don't. You know,
Mhm.
they do spread the main character, the
Yeah, it's like what it's like.
protagonists
I think
to.
it's the end of the season. It's like the first 7 disciples, and those are pretty much the main characters for most of the seasons so far. But
Yeah,
I
they
guess
definitely they add some that become pretty important.
yeah,
Like,
I like every one of them has like a little arc or narrative, but
uh-huh.
I feel like it's mostly focused on the guys you see in the first season,
Yeah.
including Mary. But
I'll say I thought about talking about James and John, but there's just not much to them in this first
no,
season. And that's a little disappointing me, just because it's like John and Jesus are like super tight, like legitimately in the Bible,
yeah,
so it's like I'd like to see more from John. Did you see that they recast James even?
yeah.
Yeah.
When I saw
I
that, I was
didn't
like,
I
I
didn't
don't know
even
how to feel
notice
about
that
it.
until the second watch through. That's how
Really?
little a character James was. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I saw when I watched the second season. I was like, okay, we'll see how that goes. I mean, I like the second guy too, so
Yeah.
if not
Yeah,
more
for
now
sure.
because I've
I
invested
was about to
two more
say
seasons of him.
I think it was just weird now watching the first season, because I'm like, that's not
That's
James. That's some random guy
he's
in their
just
pack.
imposter.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing more from them. I also think it's funny because I think that they make John and James' father important, because they are always followed by the sons of Zebedee,
Yeah,
in the Bible. So
yeah.
they're like, okay, his dad must have been a big deal. He must
They're
have been a part of
they're
this.
they're part of a rich family. Like his dad made some money.
Um, the other main character in this season is Matthew.
Yeah.
And Matthew is the most creative liberty, I think,
hmm
just because they decide to give him like OCD.
I would. You think it's just OCD?
And well, what else would it be?
I think. Oh,
I mean, there's levels to OCD for
yeah.
sure.
I could be misunderstanding, but I'm pretty sure, like in like those little behind the scenes clips and stuff. Like I think
Yeah.
he has some sort, or he's on some sort of spectrum. Which is why he doesn't know how to relate to people. Like he has some sort of. That's why he's on the spectrum because I don't really know exactly.
Uh,
And that's pretty apparent, at least in the conversations that I've seen of people behind the scenes, like specifically the actor Matthew,
yeah.
which I think was a good creative liberty because they have done a lot of those things where they try to check a lot of boxes, but in a good way. Try to be as inclusive as possible in a good sense, I guess. And Matthew is like one of the main characters, and there's a couple of behind the scenes stuff. And Matthew, the actor, literally gets dozens, if not hundreds, of emails and letters from people with similar things in their lives, and like how much their life has changed by his portrayal of Matthew and what he deals
Wow.
with and stuff in the show.
Yeah.
So it's been like a huge blessing to the show, which is why I think it's a cool creative liberty that they did that because you don't see that, you'll never see that in any other Bible or Jesus show. So
Yeah. And I also think it's a smart way to show why one might choose to betray his people
mhm,
without just being a heartless person,
yeah,
And so it is, I think that that's smart. And I also, because of this, I love his interactions with Rome, like with Gaius and with Quintus.
yeah,
Like
Goliath and Quintus.
he's just like, he doesn't take their crap,
No,
And I love that.
it like literally goes over his head and he just doesn't care. Like whatever.
Uh huh.
I
And
do like um, Praetor. What's his name? Not
Quintus.
Caius. Quintus. Yeah,
Yep.
he's very entertaining,
Yeah.
especially when he's talking to Matthew because those interactions are golden. Those are
Yes.
so funny to me because they're honestly kind of similar in a lot of ways. Because
Very
like
goal driven,
yeah,
very like I don't care what other people think.
yeah,
Yeah.
but one's in power, one's not. But they yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I love their interaction and like the development of the interactions throughout the whole first season for sure.
Quintus is a good representation of what I picture Roman leadership being.
hmm
Now, I don't know. That's just based on media entertainment, I
Yeah.
think, for me. But like, I just every time he's on the screen, I'm excited to be like, okay, what's gonna happen here with Rome?
hmm
And I also like the Gaius Matthew friendship budding in this show. You know.
Yeah, I kind of like I called like a buddy cop kind of thing
Mm,
where
yeah.
they kind of just play off each other a little bit because they're so opposites.
But you can
Um,
tell Gaius respects Matthew, and Matthew in the end starts seeing Gaius as like a good man.
mhm. And then you see Matthew like be trying to befriend him and like be nice to him and like open up, and
Uh
Gaius
huh.
kind of just like he wants to reject it so bad, but he believes it, but he just doesn't want to show it. It's very
Uh
funny
huh.
to me.
Yes. And I also love showing like Matthew so duty bound that he like refuses to let Simon off the hook when he doesn't trust him. Like it'd be so easy to just ignore it, but he's
Yeah,
like, actually, no, Simon's a scumbag. Like he is not going to follow through.
yeah.
And then so the praetor Quintus, he like makes him like spy on him. And he's like, I don't care how you do it. And then in the next like scene, he's just over in a corner looking around the edge. He's not stealthy at all.
No, not at all. And they both just like both brothers just kind of look at him like, what is that guy doing?
What is he doing? Yeah. Pretty funny.
Yeah. I will say the humor. There's a lot more humor than I thought there'd be, and I laughed a lot more than I thought it would.
Hmm.
So that was refreshing in a show that I never thought I would like as much as I have.
Yes. And the last thing on Matthew that I just kind of wanted to point out is his relationship with his parents. And like that builds more as it goes on, but it's very like, golly, might be how it was to be a tax collector.
Hmm.
Like your family's going to disown you, and you're just not welcome anywhere. And so the contrast of his life before and after Jesus, again, just it's really stark.
Yeah. The end. Don't forget the dog. I do
I
like
don't
that they added the dog
Yeah.
because for some reason in that culture, dogs are hated. Don't know
Yep.
why. All through the Bible, like when you get compared to a dog, it's like the worst thing ever. And yet they use the dog and Matthew become best friends, which I thought was kind of pretty funny. And it
I
also
think
connects
too.
with American audiences because Americans love dogs.
Right. And it also just shows too of like Matthew just not caring. You know,
Hmm.
he's like doesn't care if you're the praetor of Rome or a dog. It's just like he will interact with you straight to the
Hmm.
point, and like I don't know,
Yeah,
like his social status too is like parallel to like he has to dine with dogs. You know, like
yeah.
they do the Shabbat dinner, and the scene I think that's so good
Oh,
where they
dude.
show like the levels of Shabbat, where it's like
Yes.
the Pharisees, Nicodemus is up there, and he's questioning things because they've got this lavish table full of food and they're eating with like important
And
people
the whole time they're bragging about all the things in
and
the house. I'm
uh-huh.
like, who cares? Who
Yeah.
cares?
And then you've got Jesus and Mary at their place, and like I also think it's cool that like Mary leaves a spot for Elijah, and then Jesus sits in that spot,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's like, oh
Little
dang,
wink. Just a little wink.
yeah, a
Yeah.
little wink.
They do that so much.
Yes,
So
so
much.
many. Oh, another wink they do is always talking about how bad Simon is at running.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always getting a dig in there because
You,
eventually they're going to pay that off when he runs to the tomb and gets outrun by John.
yeah. Planting seeds all over the place for
Uh,
sure. The
but
other like ongoing
and then
joke.
the last thing on that levels
Okay.
was Matthew eating with the dog.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
and I guess they also showed Simon leaving the Shabbat dinner
Hmm.
because of how little he believed in his faith at the time,
Yeah.
and so it was just his wife and I guess her brothers. Were they even there?
I think it was just her brothers and then the mom. So
Yeah. So.
because eventually Andrew came and went with them to
Mhm.
help him out.
So it was just like it was a good scene to show all the statuses of each character and
Yeah.
what they were going through.
100%. Oh, the thing I was going to say was like a joke that Jesus has throughout the show that carries on through the whole series is the whole like soon or the whole timing, the issue of time with
Hmm.
Jesus. They're always like, when are we doing this? He's like, soon. And then he never answers them directly.
Yeah,
And they just get so
yeah,
frustrated by it.
yeah.
I love
Which
that.
is, which is still to this day. You're like, soon. What
Yeah.
does that mean?
What does that mean?
We can go through some of the Bible stories that they hit in the show and talk
Yeah.
about any other extra
If you
scenes.
have that written down for sure.
Yeah, I've got some here. So it kind of starts obviously with Mary being healed of the demon possession. And I thought it was really cool how it specifies in the Bible that she had 7 demons inside of her. So when Nicodemus tries to cast them out, they're like, we don't listen to you.
Yeah.
And then Jesus gets there, and immediately they just leave. They also have some flashbacks to like old Old Testament stories.
Ooh,
Like they
fire.
have oh man, I love when they show like the bronze serpent
Episode
on the
7. I
pole,
knew, yeah, that's
which
literally.
which is like the big one,
Oh my.
obviously.
Yeah.
It's
Dude, the
so cool.
parallels, or like the foreshadowing, I don't know, whatever term you want to use for that. And then like, especially on the first time viewing, because I think that's a cool story to begin with.
Uh-huh.
But then like it's like super obvious, like the parallels between the two. I thought they freaking hit a home run on that episode. That's my favorite episode, probably of the whole show.
So good.
Yeah, it
What
is.
which episode does that start? I can't remember.
Which what episode is that?
Yeah, which one you're saying is
7.
your favorite episode?
The one the bronze snake and the
I know, but
Nicodemus and
which episode? Oh, Nicodemus and
yeah,
Jesus talking.
yeah,
Oh,
that's the beginning of
yeah.
that episode.
But yeah, so that is really good. They also flash back to, um, is it Abraham or Isaac in the land where
I think
they
it's
hit
Jacob.
water? Jacob, gosh,
I
you
think it's
know,
Jacob. It could be. I don't freaking know, bro. It
one
could
of
have
those
been
three, dude. It's
one
been
of
a
the three.
while. Yeah,
It's one of them.
we could be a good podcast and look it up, but actually, you just look it up yourself if you're listening.
Yeah,
You'll know.
it's one of
But
them.
they strike water, and it shows like it's Jacob, isn't it? Because he wrestles with God, and he talks
Yeah,
about how he took
yeah.
it. He's like, "Why do you
With the
believe in
hip.
a God
Yeah,
that takes you out of your land, breaks your hip, and or dislocates your hip, and all this stuff?" And he's
his
like, "He
promises
just
aren't
provides."
fulfilled. Yeah, his promises
Yeah,
aren't fulfilled for generations till generations later.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and then they strike water, and
Oh, that's
that
one of the
ends.
quotes that I liked, and it was like, "Why would you choose a God that does all these things?" And he goes, "Well, I didn't choose him; he chose me."
Yeah,
You know, that kind of
yeah,
phrase, and that's like a thing that goes through the whole series. But I thought that was a cool line that I actually did write down as a quote. So
yes. You're right. I'm glad you did because that is very cool. And then they also show Jesus visiting the temple as a 12-year-old, and like the panic they show in Mary, and also their depiction of Joseph, his earthly father. I love it. Like it
yeah,
gets better as the seasons go on, but in this one, he's just like, I don't know what to do. Mary's Jesus. Like, what am I supposed to do?
yeah,
He's the literal son of God.
yeah. I think he's okay.
Yeah, but I love that. And then he's like, Jesus, don't do that again, please.
Yeah,
But very good. That's kind of the flashbacks that I remember.
yeah. Yeah,
And they, like I said, we kind of hinted at Jesus being tempted in the wilderness, but I don't think they didn't go into like Satan tempting him or
mm,
anything. If anything, it was just showing like, okay, he's starting his ministry. So that one is different than the Bible. If they do end up doing it, then I will question what that scene was about.
yeah,
But they also had the healing of Simon's mother-in-law, which I thought is a story that I rarely think about.
yep. Small one.
But the impact that must have had on his wife and just him in general, because he's like, I don't want to go on this trip with Simon worrying about you and his in-law. So that one was good. I thought that was really well portrayed, and like Jesus saying like, I see you to Eden,
Hmm.
Simon's wife, like that was one of those chill inducing moments for sure for me.
Yeah, another one was the wedding, or I should
Yep.
say the water into wine, but the
Mm-hmm.
wedding ceremony or whatever. I thought that was a creative, not creative liberty, but again, they pushed. I think they pushed a lot of people's buttons, or they pushed the boundaries when they portrayed a party essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and then everyone partaking in it. I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Hey, but I mean, the Bible says you eat and drink with sinners.
Yeah,
It's like
I mean, weddings are parties. Like that's a time to
exactly.
celebrate. So
Uh-huh. And that's a Jewish wedding right there.
yeah,
You know. And oh man, I love how this show makes me think of stories in a new light. And this is one of those times where you're talking about like, why was this the first miracle Jesus performed?
mm,
Like, I've always wondered that. I'm like, what is the significance of this? In the sense of like, okay, Jesus, you do a bunch of miracles. This one seems kind of on the lamer side. But in the context of the story, it makes so much more sense to me. And like, it makes me think about it, think through it more of like,
yeah,
like this would have been a shame to this family. Jesus is literally coming in to rescue the social status of this person that obviously he cared about,
yeah. And his
and
and
then
his mom asks him to do
right,
it.
and his mom asking him to do it, and why she would ask him to do it, and just him being like in his element with his hometown people, I
Mm-hmm.
think is just kind of cool to see at the beginning there. And then they obviously bring Thomas into it as someone who witnesses,
Yeah.
but he's not believing still.
Yeah.
And
Doubting Thomas. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So they're hinting at that also, which
Yeah.
I love.
I love. Never mind. That's second season. Oh, never mind. Sorry, I almost spoiled something second season.
We'll have to do that too. We'll do a
Yeah.
second season for
Um.
sure. You've got Jesus calling Peter, Andrew, James, John, and the
Mhm.
boats overflow with fish. I think also that one was cool too because it kind of showed like how desperate they were and how the fish would have like been such a relief to them and like showing his power, but at the same time they just drop everything, especially James and John, and just follow him, you know?
Mhm.
And it's like what a time, like that would have been such a scene to everyone that was there.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm sure that blew their minds. The leper. He heals a leper.
Mhm.
That's one. I already mentioned that one, but that's another one.
Yeah, and
Um.
that one was I love how they started that episode where they show him the leper trying to sell the last possessions that he had that were his most prized possessions,
Mhm.
and the person wouldn't give him anything for it because he was like, "Oh, you must have stolen this. Why else would you be selling this?" And then he sees that he's a leper and he's just like shunned from the
Yeah.
town. And so it kind of shows you like this leper has nothing. He's at rock bottom, like his life is miserable,
Yeah.
you know. And then for Jesus to touch the leper after they build up the whole show of talking about how you just or not talking but like showing how you just cannot be around these people.
They literally pull out their knives and try to like defend Jesus from him.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Like they don't want him they don't want him touching Jesus, and
Yeah.
Jesus goes and touches
Yeah. He's
his
like, chill
skin
out,
to heal
guys.
him. Yeah,
Chill out. I got this.
yeah.
That scene, the leper scene, is like my favorite episode 7. But I think my favorite moment of season 1 was the leper scene. I don't
Yeah,
know why, but it hit me like a Mack truck. I don't know why, but I really, really enjoyed that whole scene. I think they did a really good job of portraying the emotions behind it.
I agree.
Um,
I
and,
agree.
and and like you were saying, like they built up how much he was hated or like was separate from society. That made
Hmm.
it more the gravity of Jesus just walking up to him and touching him and healing him so much better. And like you were saying earlier, like to Eden, he said like I see you, and
Hmm.
and this part he says I am willing to heal you because a guy asked him to if he's willing to do it. Not that would he,
Hmm.
but are you even willing to do it? And he said I am willing, and then he does it. I thought that was a great scene.
And I also like too where they make it biblically like they just go into more detail of him saying like, hey, don't tell anyone, just show the priest.
Shh.
You
Yeah,
know, like we're not starting quite yet.
yeah.
So
And a
he's
lot of
like,
times
what
that
am I
doesn't work.
supposed to say?
Yeah,
Like, just don't say anything, man.
yeah.
Just go and
Oh, and that
be
leads right
clean.
into the them lowering the guy from the roof
Hmm.
to heal his
The
legs.
paralytic.
Yeah, the
Yep.
paralytic.
Dude,
Um,
that episode is so well shot. I love like I think that might have been my favorite cinematography of the whole season.
okay.
Is because they've got like you can feel the crowdedness of the street.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone is like bumping shoulders trying to look into the house of Jesus talking. You can see like they zoom out and they show you all the like the players. You've got the apostles like walking through the crowd trying to like look at. They've got the Romans out there like starting to like notice the crowd and like trying
Mm-hmm.
to herd the crowd, and then you've got the Pharisees coming in, seeing the crowd and thinking like, oh, this is the guy that is being blasphemous, and trying to go get him. And you see Nicodemus also being like, this is him. I see Mary. I want to go talk to this healer.
Yeah.
You know, so like all the storylines seem to converge right here.
Yeah.
And they do a good job of shooting it with the camera. And you've got like even the kids that are there
Yeah.
listening to him. And you've got Matthew there, and he's getting like spit on and like tossed aside because they know him as a tax collector.
Yeah.
And at this point, Matthew has seen Jesus do the miracle for Simon
Mm-hmm.
and Andrew with the boat and the fish. And so he's second guessing everything.
Yeah.
So
He's
he wants
rattled.
to see Jesus. And so all these people are just like squished into this one spot. And then you finally get the
Well, don't forget
the pair.
the desperation that the people who are trying to heal their friend, like there's that anxiety from the crowd, but like you can feel the desperation of their friends. Like I don't care about anyone else. I care about my
Uh-huh.
friend and him getting through this tiny little hole, so we can get
Yeah.
down to Jesus. Because the lady that saw the what's the lady's name that saw the leper be healed?
Is it Tamar?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's the one that saw Jesus, and she was like, "Well, if he can do that, let me get my buddy." And
Yeah.
so you see that desperation. Yeah, that scene's really
Hmm.
good. I agree.
And like they shoot it like from the roof of like you look down and see Jesus and he's looking up at her and they're
Hmm.
like locking eyes and talking of like I know you can heal him, please. And he's like your faith is beautiful. Like I see what you're like doing and I see uh how much you love this man and how much you believe in me. And so then you see the Pharisees come in and they're like, "Don't heal this man!" And Jesus reads their thoughts, and they look at each other like, "What the heck?"
He says
Ah,
Jesus says something really powerful there. I didn't write it down, but I forgot. Oh man, something along the lines of like, what's more like God for me to say to do something about sin or to tell a man
it's
to get
straight
up
out of
and
the.
walk.
He says straight out of the Bible. Like
Yeah,
this
that's
isn't
what
one of
I can't
those.
remember the exact quote, but
Yeah, this isn't one of those that they like like. What? It's not extra biblical. It's like
yeah,
straight up
they didn't
verses.
paraphrase or anything like that. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's something like what's easier for me to say your sins are forgiven or for you to get up and walk
yeah, that's it.
or for me to say get up and walk but so that you believe that I am who I say I am,
Yeah,
get up and walk.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and then he and then the camera angle is also it's behind Jesus looking at the Pharisees and then it goes to the Pharisees looking at Jesus and then it goes to the man at the who's being healed and and he's got his feet twitching. We're laughing because I was getting a little too I was moving the mic around too much. So, but yeah, it was really good. It was really good. I think that might have been my favorite shot scene, but my favorite actual scene surprised me. The one that hit me like a Mack truck was the last episode where
okay.
Jesus meets the Samaritan at the whale at the whale. That's so East Texas. Oh my god.
That's the Old Testament, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. At the well, and this is a story that I really hadn't thought of a ton in my life, just because it just felt so out of left field to me. But then, in the context of this show, I just thought about the fact that just thinking about the intentionality of Jesus starting his ministry with the least of these, like
Mhm.
with a person that people despise or who they themselves don't think highly of.
Yeah.
And just to think that the creator of the universe saw this woman like in her plight and loved her and wanted to tell her of his salvation plan and wanted to tell her more than anyone else
Hmm.
and to give her hope. Um, and he if this was a real like a story that I was writing, you have Jesus go to a king or you go to like an important person to like announce your ministry, like
Yeah.
announce like, hey, I am king, I am the kingdom on earth, I'm coming.
Yeah. I am the
And
Messiah.
instead it's just something unexpected. Like it's just constantly like the real god of the universe keeps doing unexpected things to like flip the narrative of what is like important. And I don't know, just it hit me differently in a way that I had not thought of before. And just thinking of God, seeing her and being like, that is the person I want to start my ministry with. This is the person I want to tell the good news of the gospel. Like I'm here for you. I'm here for the world, and it's just really cool.
Yeah.
That one got me. I was like, oh gosh, I'm crying.
I I'm pretty sure I cried like at least once an episode, and I'm not joking. And that's probably every time I watch an episode, like
Yeah,
without fail. It's
yeah.
impossible. But yeah, because
It's
like
hard to make me feel emotions. I'm feeling emotions in this show, and that's
yes,
that's good.
yeah, yeah, because like she's a woman, so it's a different level than a man, and she's a Samaritan, which is different than a regular Jewish person. They're looked down on by
Hmm.
the Jews, and she had multiple husbands. All this drama. It's like literally like you're saying, she is the lowest, basically, of the low,
Hmm.
and then he's the one that she's the first person that he tells to share that he is the Messiah. He tells everyone else to be
Hmm.
quiet before then, and then after her, when um she's the first person that he tells that she can go share with anyone she wants, which is
Hmm.
really cool.
Yeah,
So I'm totally with you on that one.
yeah. That one surprised me how much it affected me, but I love it. That's the beauty of this show, man. I'm telling you, just seeing things um, instead of just reading them
Yeah.
is powerful. And then another scene that I loved for different reasons was Jesus and Nicodemus talking on the roof
Mm-hmm.
and just showing like I said earlier, like Jesus trying his hardest to teach Nicodemus in like a theological way versus like all these other people he's more practical with. But
Yeah.
he's like, you're a teacher of the law. We should be able to talk about these high
Yeah.
concept things.
And the way they talk is like the way they communicate to each other is like a chess match. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just like straight answers. They talk in like such a, I don't know, poetic manner or whatever. But it's like they
Yeah.
understand on so many levels the things they're saying on such deep levels that it feels like they're like it's like a chess match, and it's really awesome to watch.
And it's cool too because it's like you see John and Andrew listening in,
Yeah.
and Andrew goes, "Have you heard anything like
Yeah.
this before?" And John's like, "Shh," and he's writing
Yeah.
it down. You know, like we got to get this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of
Uh,
course it's John 3 or whatever, John chapter 3. I don't know how much of
mm-hmm.
whatever, but I honestly, sounds dumb. I didn't know that was what was going on. I don't know if he was talking to Nicodemus during those passages.
Yeah,
And I never knew that until I watched the show, and I was like, "Wait, what?" I went through and looked
really.
at it, and I was like,
Yeah, the big one, the big John 3:16
"Yeah,
is talking to Nicodemus.
yeah." So that
And it's
that
because
added a
I
little
think
bit.
it's because Jesus can talk theology with this guy. You know, like this is a well studied man in the law, and Jesus really wants to communicate with him. And that is my favorite extra biblical thing that they do
Hmm.
is make Nicodemus believe Jesus there. And like it's another time where I got chills is where Jesus hugs him, you know, and it's like
Yes, dude.
Jesus, the creator of the universe, hugging this old man who's
And
just
and he knows
so
he's the creator
glad.
of the universe, and he's getting hugged
Yes.
by him, and he
Yes,
just
he
melts.
knows it.
Yes,
Yes.
gosh, and he's
And
in his
it's
mind, he's been the biggest authority in the land, and that he just feels like a little child when he's being hugged by Jesus, dude. It's such a
mm,
great scene,
so true. And
dude.
and it's like, man, he kneels to him and kisses his hand because he's like he knows the Bible, like he knows the verses where he's like, you know, kiss his hand lest he be angry, I think something like
Yeah,
that. And Jesus is like, get up, don't
yeah,
do that. That's
yeah.
that's not how it's gonna be.
Hmm.
Ah, it's just so strong and so powerful. And then to see Nicodemus not like Jesus invites him to be a disciple in
Dude.
this, and that's the extra biblical thing that
Yeah,
I love because that probably happened. You
yeah,
know, like Jesus probably I don't know if he said just follow me, so you know it's not necessarily saying like you're going to be an apostle,
yeah.
but to be a disciple to travel with
Yeah,
them,
like
you know,
Mary
yeah,
or other people that are in the cast, they're
that
not
probably
technically the
did
12.
happen, you
Yeah,
know,
I don't doubt
and
that kind of stuff at
to
all.
see Nicodemus not be able to follow through, just heartbreaking. Like him listening and Jesus knowing he's behind the wall and Jesus giving him a second chance. Like, is there anyone else that wants to come follow us? There
Yeah,
should be someone else.
yeah,
And Nicodemus not being able to do it, just like
and
too real, man.
well,
It's too real.
and as a viewer, I didn't really know Nicodemus's story. First of all, because I didn't know he was talking to Nicodemus in this whole part, but like seeing like him this whole time in this whole show building up to this meeting, the whole show with Nicodemus, like his whole arc is meeting Jesus in this moment. And then he realizes the truth, he accepts the truth, but then he can't live it out, he can't act it out, he can't make that decision to follow Jesus. And it literally goes from like this slow climb up this mountain, the highest of highs, this great moment, and then and then the very next moment he's denying Jesus and won't go with Jesus. And it's like, golly, like emotional roller coaster. And I'm not happy about it.
Yes. Yeah, it's powerful and just again just too real. Like just thinking about how many people just couldn't go that extra mile to just believe
Hmm.
and follow him. You know, I bet there were hundreds, if
Oh
not
yeah,
thousands, and there still is today in a sense.
yeah, 100%.
Well, it's kind of the end. We've kind of hit all the beats. Is there anything else?
I guess it'd be like stuff outside the show.
Yeah.
um I think the first season they had a thing called the Round Table, which was like the director Dallas Jenkins, and then like I believe it's either other writers or the faith leaders that he used to direct and make the show. He had a have you heard this before? Okay.
No.
So it's like a table, and he has a leading Jewish scholar, a leading Catholic scholar, and a leading um, evangelical, I don't know what you want to call it, pe- uh, Protestant scholar, I should say. That's probably the best way to say it. And he would have their input on everything in the entire show. And so a lot of what, like, so he's not stepping on too many toes, but everything he's trying to present with as much accuracy as possible. And they just kind of go over the show every episode and kind of go through each episode. I think for the first 2 seasons, and then in season 3 they do a lot more behind the scenes interactions with the actors and interviews and things like that. So I would, if you get the Chosen app, which is where you find it all, highly recommend watching all those because they're 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, and it's just they add so much more information and background to the reasons they do certain things and the reason they don't do certain things. And I think it adds a lot of context and richness too when you're watching the show.
Okay,
But
I'll have to see that. Yeah,
yeah,
because I've not watched that.
yeah, and I believe I could be mistaken. I know it's one of the two. Either the first 3 episodes were written with no intention of carrying on, or the first season was carrying on, and they were just hoping that it would work out. Like, but they had no intentions of making a second or third season. So they were like, they literally look at it like it's a miracle that God has blessed this show so much that they were able to continue to bless the show through season 2 and season 3, and as I think they have planned 7 seasons. So not number 7, a little on the nose, but
I like it.
so
I like it.
yeah, so a lot more to look
It
forward
is
to.
crazy that this is a crowd-funded show, but that allows them to have this production level.
Hmm.
Like I remember, I think I was telling my parents about this show, and I told them their goals for each episode is like in the millions, and it's like they're not halfway doing this. They're making a legitimate TV show,
Oh yeah,
and I love that Christians are supporting it enough to continue to make it. And I had just someone said recently, like they're like, I think this might be the great work of the Spirit in our time, and it's like I think I agree with that because
yeah,
because we're such a visual medium generation. Like people read, but not like they used to, and
yeah,
people who do read, like a lot of it's audiobooks, and like there's not a lot of time spent in quiet contemplation like there
hmm,
used to be. There's just so much going on, and to create a piece of entertainment that is so Bible focused, and like the opening scene, they say something like, yeah, they open it up and they say The Chosen is based on the true stories of the Gospels of Jesus Christ. Some locations and timelines have been combined or condensed, backstories and some characters or dialogue have been added. However, all biblical and historical context and any artistic imaginations are designed to support the truth and intention of the scriptures. Viewers are encouraged to read the Gospels.
yeah,
So it's like up front they're telling you like this is the Bible, and we are trying to make it digestible for our generation. Not
yeah,
digestible, but like more accessible for
yeah.
our generation. And I can honestly say I've read my Bible more because of this show,
Oh,
and
dude,
that is 100% the intention.
yeah,
And I love that. And I
yeah,
think that the Spirit is working through the show to move people in a way
yeah. I
that they
100%.
haven't been before.
Yeah, I 100% believe that the Holy Spirit has used this show, especially when in the first season when it was low budget. I'm pretty sure it was almost all filmed in Weatherford, Texas,
Yeah.
and like low budget stuff. And God has used that, and you see it in the Bible. You also see in the show that Jesus meets them where they're at, and I 100% agree with what you're saying that Jesus is meeting the culture that we have nowadays where we're at, which is a lot of media stuff, and God's using the show like The Chosen to reach. I think they're at 500 million people now that have seen the
Yeah.
Chosen series, which is more than pretty much every show ever at this point. So yeah, seeing God use the show to, I think they've reached almost every country in the world with this show, except for like a 10, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm throwing a lot of stats out, but I've watched all the behind the scenes stuff, so that,
It's all
but
just coming to you right now.
yeah, but it's like it for real is like I 100% believe God's using the show to do a great work essentially. So
I agree. Well, man, thanks for joining and talking about it. We'll definitely go into season 2 sometime in the future.
It gets
But
better every
man,
season, so
it does. It's so good. And thank y'all for listening. And again, thanks Spencer for joining. I really enjoyed talking about it. And,
always.
hopefully they can keep making this show, and hopefully we can keep watching it and being impacted. And you know, God bless you, man. God bless y'all as well. Thanks for listening. Dress me like a lamb for the slaughter, pour me in your cup. Should've known we'd bring trouble, and trouble gonna find you here. Trouble. I was one way when you found me, I was not the one you see. And the only thing that happened was this stranger in between. And you can say